Donald Trump's victory could mean new opportunities for a number of prominent Wisconsinites. There's a lot of chatter about whether Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke could end up with a role in the Trump administration. And there's also speculation about the future of RNC Committee Chairman Reince Priebus and Speaker Paul Ryan. We're talking more about this now with ABC News political director Rick Klein, who's in Washington. Rick, good to have you back on the program. Let me begin with the RNC chair, Reince Priebus. Some speculation about whether he could play some role in the Trump administration. What are you hearing?
Reince Priebus is definitely in the mix for something high up, maybe even White House Chief of Staff. A lot of folks around Trump found it telling that Donald Trump brought him on stage in the biggest moment in the wee hours of Wednesday morning to personally thank Reince Priebus. Reince was part of the inside war room during those debate prep sessions. He helped navigate Donald Trump through a turbulent last couple of weeks. And for all the give and take of that relationship between the RNC and Donald Trump, Reince Priebus emerged as one of the most effective allies that Donald Trump has, and critically, a potential bridge to the establishment wing of the Republican Party, including Speaker Paul Ryan.
And is there any talk about whether some people want to keep Priebus in his current job, since he's done a very good job by all accounts in terms of raising money for the RNC?
If he wanted to stay, he could certainly stay. But I think Donald Trump has other people who can fill that role. And I know that Reince wants an upgrade and wants to cash it out on this in the sense that it's not so often that you get to say you elect a president. And he can take a lot of credit with the RNC's organization, with its fundraising game, and also just with sanding down the rougher edges of Donald Trump for the mainstream of the Republican Party. I feel like Reince has put himself in a position to take on a very major role in this White House.
Well, Rick, you touched on this. Loyalty is very important to Donald Trump, and no one has been more loyal throughout this campaign than the Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke. Do you hear David Clarke's name being talked about as someone who could go to Washington?
100%. I think if Sheriff Clarke wants a major role in the Donald Trump Justice Department or Homeland Security Department, then I think they will find something for him to do in a very prominent way. I feel like they feel like he sends important symbolic messages, given his background, but also I think the loyalty that you reference is important. People remember his speech at the convention as a highlight for them, the intensity that he delivered that message, the importance of that message, given where the election stood at that moment, the heat that he took for being as out front as he was in support of Donald Trump. All those things are very much recognized, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't try to tap into his experience and his expertise.
And let's talk for a moment about Speaker Paul Ryan. What does the future hold for Ryan, given the fact that his relationship with Donald Trump was somewhat tenuous during the campaign?
To say the least. Look, Donald Trump could oust Speaker Ryan, I believe, if he decided to try to do so. But I don't think he will. And I think that's in part because Speaker Ryan has been so generous in the aftermath of the election. He went out the next day and said, I see a Trump mandate that he has earned. He went out the day after that, sat next to Donald Trump on Capitol Hill and said, make America great again. And I see the two of them just finding a way to work together and using the Trump agenda to become a Trump-Ryan agenda. They are going to clash on things, there's no question. But in the immediate term, it seems most likely that Ryan, realizing that the majority that he enjoys in the House is in part due to the Trump effect, is going to find ways to work with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will find ways to work with Paul Ryan. It will be an uneasy and unusual partnership from two guys who differ so much, but I could actually see it working.
ABC News political director Rick Klein, we always appreciate you being on the program. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike.
And next on Up Front, we'll take a closer look at Wisconsin's shift to the right in Tuesday's election.